What if the reason your life hasn't changed yet is not time, effort, or luck, but a belief you've never questioned, a belief so common, so accepted, that it quietly controls how fast reality responds to you? Most people think change must be slow, step by step, year by year. They believe growth needs struggle, repetition, and waiting. Jacobo Grinberg discovered something disturbing about this idea. The belief itself is what keeps reality frozen. From childhood, we are taught that change is gradual. You study for years to succeed. You heal slowly. You improve little by little. This sounds logical, but Grinberg noticed that reality does not obey logic the way we think it does. It obeys perception, and perception does not move in straight lines. It reorganizes instantly when awareness shifts. Here is the lesser-known part. In Grinberg's research on consciousness, he found that the brain does not create reality. It organizes it. Reality is already flexible. What stiffens it is divided attention and internal conflict. When you believe change takes time, your awareness stays split between who you are and who you want to become. That split creates resistance, and resistance slows everything down. This is why people can work for years with little result, while others experience sudden breakthroughs that feel almost unreal. Not because they are special, but because for a moment, their awareness became whole. No inner argument, no waiting, no mental delay. Grinberg showed that transformation does not begin with action. It begins with a mental shift so subtle that most people miss it. The shift is not effort, it is coherence. When awareness stops negotiating with reality, reality reorganizes itself instantly. This is why sudden healings, rapid success, and unexpected changes often happen when people stop trying. Not when they push harder, not when they plan more, but when the internal noise collapses. In this video, you will learn what that one mental shift is, why gradual change is mostly an illusion, and how your belief about time quietly programs how fast reality responds to you. By the end, you may realize that the life you've been waiting years to change could shift much faster than you ever imagined. Welcome to Awakened Synchronicity. If this understanding resonates with you and you want to explore Jacobo Grinberg's teachings on consciousness and reality more deeply, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay with us until the end. Before we talk about the mental shift that changes everything, we need to understand what Jacobo Grinberg discovered about reality itself. According to Grinberg, reality is not a solid structure existing independently from you. It is not something you simply enter and react to. It is something that is constantly being organized by perception and awareness. Grinberg proposed that what we experience as the physical world emerges from a deeper field of information. This field is neutral, flexible, and unfinished. It only takes form when consciousness interacts with it. In other words, reality does not arrive fully built. It is assembled moment by moment through the way awareness is arranged. Most people assume their senses report an objective world. Grinberg challenged this assumption. He showed that the brain does not record reality like a camera. It selects, filters, and organizes patterns. What you call reality is the final arrangement produced by attention, memory, and expectation working together. This is why two people can live in the same environment but experience completely different lives. Their external conditions may look similar, but their internal organization is not. Awareness shapes what becomes visible, relevant, and possible. Grinberg called this organizing process the structure of perception. When perception is rigid, reality appears fixed. When perception loosens, reality becomes fluid. The world does not change first. Awareness does, and the world follows. This idea explains why sudden changes feel shocking. They do not come from external effort. They come from a silent reordering inside. When awareness shifts, the structure holding reality in place rearranges itself without resistance. Before we go any further, it's important to clear a common misunderstanding. The mental shift Jacobo Grinberg pointed to is not positive thinking. It is not repeating affirmations. It is not convincing yourself that everything is fine when it isn't. Motivation works at the level of effort. Grinberg was working at the level beneath effort, where experience is organized before thought even appears. Positive thinking still carries tension. There is a before and an after, a problem and a solution, a person who lacks and a person who wants to gain. That inner split is subtle, but it matters. Grinberg showed that as long as awareness is divided, reality responds with friction. You may feel inspired for a moment, but the structure underneath remains unchanged. The shift he described is quieter. It is a change in how awareness relates to experience. Instead of trying to replace one thought with another, awareness steps back and observes without interference. There is no pushing, no correcting, no labeling. Awareness becomes present without preference. This changes the internal order instantly. When awareness stops arguing with what is, perception reorganizes itself. Reality does not resist this because nothing is being forced. The world you experience begins to feel less solid, less personal, and more responsive. This is why the shift often feels strange at first. There is nothing dramatic happening, yet everything starts moving. This brings us to attention, which Grinberg considered one of the most powerful forces shaping reality. Attention is not just focus, it is the way energy is distributed through awareness. Wherever attention stabilizes, structure forms. This is true in the mind and in the world. When attention is clear and steady, perception becomes coherent. Events line up. Decisions feel simpler. Outcomes require less effort. But when attention is scattered, pulled in many directions at once, perception loses order. Reality begins to feel heavy, delayed, and resistant. Most people live with fragmented attention. Part of them is in the past. Part is worried about the future. Part is judging the present. This constant division weakens perception. Reality reflects that disorder back as confusion, stress, and blocked progress. Grinberg showed that attention does not just observe reality, it participates in shaping it. When attention is divided, the structure it organizes is unstable. When attention becomes unified, the structure becomes efficient and responsive. This is why forcing concentration often backfires. Trying to focus while internally conflicted only tightens the split. True focus emerges when awareness stops resisting itself. Then attention naturally gathers without effort. From here, the observer effect becomes easier to understand. In physics, the observer effect shows that observation influences outcomes. Grinberg extended this principle beyond the laboratory. He saw it operating in everyday life, in emotions. Observation changes the emotional state. When a feeling is watched without judgment, it loses intensity. It reorganizes. The emotion does not disappear through suppression, but through clarity. In money, observation reveals hidden patterns. People often repeat financial behaviors unconsciously. When awareness observes these patterns without blame, the structure holding them in place loosens. Opportunities that were invisible before begin to appear. In health, Grinberg noted that the body responds to awareness. Tension held unconsciously disrupts internal order. When attention gently observes the body without trying to fix it, coherence increases. The body reorganizes its own balance. In relationships, observation dissolves projection. Most conflicts persist because people react automatically. When awareness observes instead of reacts, the dynamic changes. The other person responds differently, often without knowing why. This is the deeper meaning of observation. It is not passive, it is organizing. It removes interference. It allows the underlying field to arrange itself more efficiently. Grinberg's insight was that reality is not waiting for you to try harder. It is waiting for awareness to become clear. When attention is unified and observation is clean, reality has no reason to resist. it simply adjusts. Effort fails more often than people realize because effort usually begins with resistance. When you force change, there is an assumption hidden underneath. The assumption is that something is wrong with the present moment. That assumption immediately divides awareness. One part wants what is happening to stop. Another part wants something else to appear. This split creates internal conflict, and conflict is not neutral. It reinforces the very structure you are trying to escape. Jacobo Grinberg observed that effort tightens perception. The more you push against a pattern, the more attention you give it. Attention feeds structure. So when you fight an old habit, a limitation or an emotional state, you may feel active, but you are actually stabilizing the pattern at a deeper level. The struggle becomes part of the structure. This is why people can work hard for years and feel stuck in the same place. They are applying force from within a divided state. One part of awareness is moving forward, while another part is holding the past in place. Reality mirrors this fight precisely. Movement appears slow, results feel delayed, progress feels exhausting. Effort also narrows awareness. When you try to change something, attention collapses around the problem. Perception becomes rigid. Alternatives disappear. The field of possibilities shrinks. From this state, even correct actions feel heavy because they are taken from tension, not clarity. Grinberg noted that effort is useful only after coherence is established. Without inner order, effort scatters energy. With inner order, even small actions carry disproportionate impact. Most people reverse this sequence. They push first and hope order follows. But order never comes from force. It comes from alignment. This leads to the shift Grinberg considered essential. The shift from doing to observing. This does not mean passivity. It means removing interference. Doing is driven by intention. Observing is driven by presence. When you stop trying to change experience, awareness relaxes. The internal conflict dissolves because there is no longer a goal fighting the present. Observation, as Grinberg described it, is precise and silent. There is no commentary, no evaluation, no desire for a different outcome. Awareness simply witnesses what is happening as it is. This creates an immediate change in the internal structure because the division disappears. The moment you stop trying to fix a thought, it loses its grip. The moment you stop pushing an emotion away, it begins to reorganize. The moment you stop forcing a situation to resolve, new responses appear naturally. This is not because you gave up, it is because awareness became whole. Judgment is the main obstacle to observation. Judgment fragments attention. One part observes, another part evaluates, another part resists. True observation has no intention attached to it. It is clean. It allows perception to reconfigure itself without interference. Grinberg emphasized that intention belongs to the surface mind. Observation belongs to a deeper level of awareness. When observation is stable, intention becomes unnecessary. Action arises on its own, timed correctly, without strain. From this state, inner order begins to form. Inner order does not mean calm emotions or positive thoughts. It means coherence. It means awareness is no longer scattered across regret, anticipation, and resistance. Attention gathers naturally in the present moment. When inner awareness becomes coherent, reality responds, not symbolically. Structurally, events align with less friction. Interactions feel smoother. Outcomes require fewer steps. This is not magic. It is organization. Grinberg explained that reality is structured like a field responding to patterns. When the internal pattern is disordered, the field reflects disorder. When the internal pattern becomes ordered, the field reorganizes accordingly. This is why outer change never precedes inner coherence. People often wait for circumstances to improve before they relax. Grinberg showed the opposite. Relaxation of awareness comes first. The circumstances follow, not as a reward, but as a reflection. This is also why inner order cannot be faked. Pretending to be calm while internally resisting does nothing. Reality responds to the actual structure of awareness, not the story you tell yourself. When awareness is unified, even briefly, reality responds immediately. The outer world does not need instructions. It responds automatically to coherence. When inner noise drops, perception sharpens. When perception sharpens, reality reorganizes itself without effort. This is the quiet mechanism behind sudden breakthroughs. Nothing is added, nothing is forced, something is removed. Interference, division, conflict, and once that obstruction dissolves, movement becomes natural again. Before we explore the shift that changes everything, it's essential to understand the role of identity in shaping our experience. Jacobo Grinberg observed that identity, the story we tell ourselves about who we are, acts as a fixed lens through which reality is filtered. Every thought of "I am this" or "I cannot do that" reinforces an internal structure, a grid that organizes perception. The more we repeat our self-concept, the more rigid this grid becomes. We are constantly rehearsing our own limitations, expectations, and habitual reactions. Even when we think we are acting freely, awareness is constrained by identity. The world mirrors this rigidity. Events, people, and circumstances respond to the pattern we carry, not to who we wish we could be. Identity does not only define what we are capable of, it defines what is possible. If you see yourself as someone who always fails, perception filters reality to confirm failure. Opportunities are overlooked. Choices are narrowed. Even subtle internal divisions, doubts, judgments, comparisons are reinforced by identity. Every memory, emotion, and expectation contributes to a network of perception that freezes reality in place. This is why repeated efforts to change without shifting identity often fail. You can modify surface behaviors, but the underlying perceptual structure remains. The world continues to reflect the old pattern, no matter how hard you push. Dropping identity is not about rejecting who you are. It is about loosening the grip of self-definition so awareness can expand. When the habitual I relaxes, perception stops filtering reality through rigid expectations. Thoughts and feelings continue, but they are no longer bound to a pre-existing framework. Awareness becomes fluid. It can register possibilities that were previously invisible. Choices arise spontaneously. Patterns that once felt inevitable dissolve. The moment you stop identifying with labels, stories, or limitations, reality itself begins to breathe differently. The world is no longer locked by the mental grid of self. Grinberg emphasized that this is not a gradual process of self-improvement. It is an instantaneous shift in the structure of perception. When attention ceases to split between who I am and what I want, awareness becomes whole. Division is the source of friction, resistance, and delay. One part of you clings to identity, another part reaches for change. The clash creates tension. As long as awareness is divided, reality mirrors that tension. But the instant the division dissolves, coherence emerges. Perception aligns, and the field of reality responds immediately. The shift feels sudden because it is structural, not incremental. Nothing in the world needs to be rearranged. It is the internal framework that changes. The moment awareness becomes whole, events start to reorganize naturally. Decisions become effortless. Relationships respond differently. Emotions flow without unnecessary reactivity. Opportunities appear without planning. The world is no longer resisting you because the interference within perception has disappeared. Even long-standing challenges can resolve without effort. Not because circumstances have changed magically, but because the field responding to your unified awareness now operates without friction. This is why people describe such experiences as shocking or unreal. The change does not come from moving pieces in the outside world. It comes from the invisible, underlying pattern that structures reality. Think of it as removing a lens from your eyes. Rather than moving the scenery, The scenery is exactly the same, but suddenly it is clear, ordered, and responsive. What was once frozen and rigid now flows. What was delayed now appears immediate. This is why traditional methods of effort and control feel inadequate. They target the surface, not the framework that perception relies upon. Grinberg noted that the suddenness of the shift is a hallmark of true transformation. It is not gradual because it is not additive. It is not about building something new step by step. It is subtractive, silent, and instantaneous. The interference, the inner resistance, the division, the fixed identity is simply removed. Awareness aligns, the coherence spreads through perception like a ripple. Suddenly, reality behaves differently, even though nothing external has been manipulated. People often describe this moment with words like unreal, miraculous, or impossible. These descriptions come from the mind's surprise at a structure it assumed was permanent. For years, identity and divided attention have created a perception of limitation. Then, without warning, the structure collapses, and the world reflects a new organization. The mind interprets this as sudden because it had assumed solidity where there was only pattern. This is why inner shifts feel so disproportionate to external action. One subtle change in awareness, stopping identification with fixed labels, letting attention unify, can ripple outward into every area of life. Financial situations, relationships, health, creativity, all of them respond to the new coherence. Nothing is forced. Nothing is consciously manipulated. Reality is simply allowed to align with the unfractured field of perception. Even long-held habits are influenced instantly. Actions that were once automatic no longer hold the same power. Emotional reactions soften. Automatic thoughts lose their urgency. Decisions that previously felt difficult now emerge effortlessly. The suddenness is not a trick. It is the nature of consciousness itself. When the organizing principle, attention and awareness is corrected, everything else reorganizes immediately in response. Grinberg's insight explains why many breakthroughs feel so shocking and why they often defy explanation. People report their lives changing overnight, even when nothing in their environment has been altered. The world appears new, not because it has changed, but because the lens of perception has been released from fixation. The who you are, that once locked reality in place, no longer dictates the outcome. Awareness has become whole. The split attention, the divided self, the inner friction, all of it dissolves, and the field of reality responds. This moment of wholeness is subtle, yet profound. It is not dramatic in a physical sense, but it is life-altering. The world is more responsive, fluid, and abundant. People find themselves acting with clarity, making decisions without hesitation, and navigating circumstances with ease. What used to require effort now occurs naturally. Opportunities, solutions, and insights appear as if by themselves. The shift is structural, not circumstantial. The suddenness also reveals the hidden mechanics of change that most people never see. Change is not about accumulation or struggle, it is about alignment. Once attention and awareness unify, the field no longer resists. The old patterns, which seemed immovable, are free to dissolve. The mind and the world stop being adversaries. Observation, coherence, and presence become the architects of reality, not effort or desire. This is why true transformation often feels instantaneous. It is not the world that has changed, but perception. Identity, divided attention, and inner friction were holding reality in a frozen state. Release them, and the field responds. The shift is invisible, yet it is the source of visible change. People experience it as shocking because it contradicts the story they have been told, that change takes time, struggle, and constant effort. In reality, time is irrelevant. Effort is secondary. Awareness is primary. And when it becomes whole, reality follows immediately. Every aspect of life is influenced by this underlying principle. Emotional patterns, mental habits, relational dynamics, financial situations, and even physical well-being are all shaped by the structure of awareness. When perception is unified, the outer world aligns effortlessly. What once felt solid and resistant suddenly moves with clarity and ease. The shock people feel is the mind's recognition that its long-held assumptions about limitation and delay were never truly real. Grinberg's work shows that this principle is universal. It applies to everyone, everywhere, regardless of circumstances. The mechanics of perception and awareness are consistent. Identity constrains reality, divided attention fragments it, unified awareness liberates it. Once this unity occurs, the world does not gradually shift, it responds instantly. The suddenness is the natural expression of the underlying coherence. The experience often leaves people questioning everything they thought about cause and effect. They may look around and realize nothing external has changed, yet everything feels different. Relationships communicate more smoothly. Work flows more efficiently. Emotional turbulence diminishes, creative insight appears effortlessly. Money or opportunity seems more accessible. The change is not in the world, it is in the structure of consciousness that organizes the world. Grinberg emphasized that this suddenness is essential for understanding consciousness. If change were gradual, it would reinforce the illusion that effort is primary. By contrast, sudden shifts reveal that the field of reality is always responsive to awareness. Effort and planning only work once the underlying structure is aligned, until awareness becomes whole. External action alone cannot produce lasting change. This principle explains countless experiences described as spontaneous awakenings, sudden clarity, or miraculous shifts. People often report life transforming overnight, a feeling so unreal it defies explanation. What has occurred is not an accumulation of events, but a release of internal constraints. Awareness becomes whole. Identity relaxes. Divided attention disappears. Reality reorganizes itself immediately in response. Once this structural shift occurs, even subtle choices have amplified effects. Actions flow naturally from coherence. Energy that was once dispersed now moves efficiently. The mind no longer argues with itself. The world no longer argues with you. Everything unfolds with a clarity and immediacy that feels astonishing precisely because it violates the expectation of slow, effortful change. This is the core of why awareness becomes the ultimate catalyst. The who you are, that once dictated perception, is no longer the lens through which reality is filtered. Instead, attention and awareness act as a unified field, capable of reorganizing experience without force. The world responds instantly, fluidly, and without resistance. The suddenness is not an anomaly, it is the natural expression of an aligned awareness, a principle Jacobo Grinberg revealed through his profound studies of consciousness. When this moment occurs, people often describe it as unreal, miraculous, or impossible. Their previous assumptions about time, effort, and limitation dissolve. They experience the subtle but undeniable truth. It is not circumstances that must change for life to transform. It is the internal structure of awareness itself. And once that structure becomes whole, reality immediately mirrors the new coherence. The one shift that changes everything is simple, yet profound. It is not about effort, struggle, or forcing reality to bend to your will. Reality does not respond to force. It responds to coherence. When your awareness becomes whole, when attention is unified, the world aligns naturally with the structure of your perception. The mental shift is not thinking differently or trying harder, it is observing quietly, without judgment, and allowing the field of reality to reorganize itself. Take a moment now, notice your thoughts, your feelings, your attention. Simply watch. Let go of control. Let reality respond to the clarity within you. This is the shift Jacobo Grinberg revealed. Awareness becomes whole, and everything else follows effortlessly. If this insight resonates with you, and you want to explore more teachings that can transform the way you perceive and experience reality, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Awaken Synchronicity, so you never miss a moment of awakening.